Hello everyone, this is Professor Reha, Chief Information Officer of Clan Indigo Oni, here with gaming news, and today I wanted to talk about why I believe Cold War will not sell as well as Modern Warfare. Now, before I begin, I would like to state quite clearly that I am not a fanboy of either company, nor am I for or against either game. I have seen some facts that have led me to come to this conclusion that Cold War will not sell as well. Now, with that being said, the first thing that we have to do is talk about why Modern Warfare is so far the best-selling Call of Duty game in series history. Now, the first thing that you'll probably be tired of hearing me talk about is the pandemic, but I'm going to keep this brief. As I've stated numerous times throughout my gaming news series, the pandemic has caused people to lose jobs, and those of you who still have jobs spend their free time at home rather than out and about. And as such, they're looking for new hobbies that they can do at home. Those people with sufficiently good computerized hardware, be it a gaming console or a sufficiently advanced PC with loads of memory storage, will give Warzone a try, and if, again, they have the memory and they have the gaming capacity for it, and they like Warzone enough, they will probably purchase the full game, because they enjoyed Warzone gameplay-wise, and while obviously multiplayer gaming comes with its frustrations and differences in opinion between the player and the devs, overall, if they enjoy the gameplay enough, they'll enjoy the full game, and this is a fairly reasonable conclusion to come to, and many do. This is something that no other Call of Duty has had before in the entire series. Even Black Ops 4, which did have a Battle Royale, had the Battle Royale tied to actually purchasing the full game, with the exception of free periods. So in order for a player who may have enjoyed the Battle Royale to continue to play the Battle Royale, they would have to have purchased the entire game, and not necessarily all of them are willing to do that. Whereas with Warzone, it's not a requirement. Those of whom are interested can just straight up only play Warzone and not actually pay or play the full game. And that's perfectly fine. But it is one of the reasons why Modern Warfare's sales are so high. That does help quite a lot. The second reason is that it has been explicitly stated by Infinity Ward that Modern Warfare was designed for newer players to have an easier time entering the series. Now, whether or not you disagree with this, the fact that the previous few Call of Duties had sold the least since the beginning of the series, and that their sales numbers were declining, this was something that the series as a whole did need. So I can understand the motivation to do so. Whether or not they took it too far, again, is a matter of personal opinion. I don't particularly mind. I think it's a great thing for the series personally. But I can respect that other people don't feel the same way. That does, however, increase sales, since obviously, with this being an official statement by the developers, those of whom who have been interested in playing Call of Duty but felt unable to do so because of the higher difficulty threshold would be more comfortable getting into the series from this game on, rather than a previous entry in the series. Third, and finally, gaming as a hobby is much more common than it used to be. So, as the series has progressed, and until now seen declining sales numbers, the potential audience of increasing numbers of gamers has grown. And of course, with this increased interest in gaming as a hobby across most of society, as it's a generational thing for the most part, then you would see more people willing to try out Warzone and Call of Duty than you would 10, 15, 20 years ago. So those are the three primary factors of why Modern Warfare sold so well in the series. Now, why won't Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War sell as well? Why won't this particular game sell as well, in my opinion? Well, there are three primary reasons. The first is that it has the same and or a similar SBMM, skill-based matchmaking system, that the Modern Warfare game had. So, anybody who walked away from Modern Warfare over the SBMM is going to see these statements that Cold War has a similar or identical SBMM and not purchase the game. Some of them will give the game a try, but a majority of them won't, especially after they read reviews that the SBMM hasn't changed, and members of that particular portion of the community that are anti-SBMM will come back and report that it's the same kind of SBMM, and interest from that portion of the community will die very quickly. In a similar way, the players who were hugely fond of Battlefield 4 back in the day, which I was one of those people, and who come into Modern Warfare and enjoy it because of its somewhat similar feel to Battlefield 4, will also not be as interested in Cold War, since it has been a widely known fact in the Call of Duty community by this point that Treyarch and Infinity Ward make completely different feeling Call of Duty games to the point where they almost feel like different shooter series that happen to share the same name. Almost, but not quite. So at least some portion of Battlefield 4 fans, or the Battlefield community in general, who also play Modern Warfare will be less interested and less likely to purchase Cold War simply because it's not going to be in the same vein as Modern Warfare is. So there is going to be that portion of the player base that simply isn't going to be picking up Cold War for that reason. Again, some of them will, but not all of them will. So to some extent, that particular segment of the populace is simply just not going to purchase Cold War. Third and finally, you have some statements by the dev team at Treyarch that have stated that Cold War is going to basically be a second Modern Warfare. Now, these are mostly tweets from differing members of the dev team, and I don't personally believe them. I've played the beta, and while I didn't actually have the opportunity to play the alpha because of midterms, I did have members of Clan Oni play the game, and they told me that it wasn't really a whole lot different from the beta that I played, so I didn't necessarily even have to bother playing it or trying it out myself. It felt very similar. It was basically the same, which I can very well believe. It was only the span of about 2-3 weeks between the beta. Actually, I think it was a full month between the beta and the alpha. So, my fellow members of Clan Oni did report that they were very similar feeling. And on that particular point, the beta that I played did not really feel that much like Modern Warfare. The movement felt quite a bit different, the way the guns handled felt differently, and quite frankly, I do believe that this was simply a exaggeration by the dev team, or at least those of whom who have tweeted out similar sentiments, that it is basically a second Modern Warfare. And as such, I don't really believe that that's anything more than trying to maintain the player base throughout, since I believe the dev team itself can see that interest in Cold War isn't quite as high as maybe they would like. Now, these tweets kind of pop in and out, and they fade in and out as time goes on, and one of the original tweets that I saw has since been deleted, which I found interesting. But with that being said, the people who are against Modern Warfare, either for its gameplay or the SBMM or what have you, but any player who walked away from Modern Warfare is not likely to pick up Cold War after having read something like that, simply because, oh yeah, it's basically a second Modern Warfare, why should I bother? I didn't like Modern Warfare, I won't like this. So there is going to be a certain proportion of the fan base that's going to see that and walk away from potentially buying Cold War. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Cold War will necessarily sell badly. I'm not saying that. There is going to be a large portion of the fan base, myself included, who are very much looking forward to the Zombies mode. but I'm one of those players who intends to play both. I intend to play Modern Warfare for the multiplayer, and while I will be playing some multiplayer on Cold War, I'm sure, most of my time in Cold War will be spent in zombies. So, there is going to be good sales for it, but I don't think it will sell as well as Modern Warfare. Now, the main point of this video, which is what I'm ultimately getting to, is that this will, in the long run, affect how the series is created and sold in the future. See, there are a couple of factors here of particular note. First off, Activision had very specifically, with the creation of Modern Warfare, been looking to redefine the series. It had been seeing declining sales despite an increasing interest in gaming from the public, and as a result, it is a strong indication that the Call of Duty series was becoming what would basically be a self-contained gaming community. And since that would be fine for a single-player game, for example, Amnesia. But for a multiplayer game that is looking for retention, player retention, that's the kiss of death. So they had to revamp the series, and Modern Warfare was how. Notice that Warzone is going to be continuous throughout all entries of the series. Warzone is going to be kind of the focal point upon which all the other games are going to sort of revolve around. Because, after all, when you look at the success of Fortnite, Fortnite is one continuous game. Yes, it's had some changes. Yes, its player base has been declining recently, over the past year or so. But, nevertheless, it has proven that a long-running multiplayer game can work. Granted, all of these happen to be Battle Royales at the moment, and it's only a matter of time before somebody tries this with a different multiplayer shooter game to make it as long-running. But another example of a long-running multiplayer game would be League of Legends. Same multiplayer gameplay, no new games, there has been no League of Legends 2. It's just League of Legends having a multiplayer game run a really long period of time. It can work. And I believe that Activision will start to consider doing this with Call of Duty. Rather than releasing a new Call of Duty every year, it's entirely possible that the series will start taking one Call of Duty game and building on that continuously, and maybe adding in updates or changes over time annually in a similar vein as almost like a Call of Duty game, but not quite. And really, I think Cold War is ultimately a test run of the idea of, if we're doing a Warzone, a continuous Warzone between games, how bad is a switch from one game to a complete different game within that context going to go? So really, Cold War is going to decide whether or not the Call of Duty series remains a game-a-year release type thing, or if it's going to become, we're going to take this game and we're going to add on to it over time. If they do choose to take a single game and add on to it over time, considering rumors of a Modern Warfare 2 remaster, it would not be particularly bad if they decided, instead of releasing a whole separate Modern Warfare 2 remaster, they layer it over Modern Warfare Remastered currently, or at least allow us to transfer our blueprints, etc. That would be really well received. And it would also be the starting point of having a single Call of Duty game be continuous throughout the years. Now, another problem that Cold War is going to be facing that I just thought of, a fourth point why Cold War won't sell as well, is the absolutely staggering memory requirements it's forecasted to need. While the Battle Royale free-to-play portion of it is only looking to take up about 50 gigabytes, which is about the size of a major single-player AAA level game. Maybe AAA single-player games are a little bit more, or a little bit less, depending upon how large the world is in those. The multiplayer is forecasted as taking 250 gigabytes. And let's all be honest, not everyone has that kind of memory capacity. Now, I play Call of Duty on PlayStation, so for me, that's less of a concern. The console memory requirements are lower than those of PC, and in light of the new consoles coming out, this is a little less of a concern. But the PC player base is doomed. We're talking, those are absolutely staggering memory requirements for a multiplayer portion, and that's really going to restrict potential players of Cold War, especially if they already play Modern Warfare, as many of them do. Many of those people interested in Cold War are in fact currently playing Modern Warfare, which itself has absolutely huge levels of memory requirements that have only recently begun to slim down. So that memory requirement from Cold War is going to really diminish the availability of the game to certain people who happen to have that kind of memory on their PCs. Again, consoles aren't going to care that much. Maybe you'll have to delete a couple more games if you play both. Or maybe another possibility is that the memory requirements even for console are going to cause people to decide not to go with Cold War because they've already invested all this time in Modern Warfare and they can't fit both games onto their current console, especially if they have an original PS4 which has lower than average memory. And they may just decide, I can't swing both of these, I'll pick the one I know I currently enjoy, rather than risk deleting it, buying Cold War, and not liking it, because that is a bigger risk than sticking with Modern Warfare. So that is a fourth reason why Cold War simply will not sell as well as Modern Warfare. The absolutely staggering memory requirements involved, and that's just on launch. Anybody with forethought will realize that as things are added to Cold War, which is inevitable given how Modern Warfare's release worked, that those memory requirements will increase as Cold War is updated, as there are things added to it, as there are new blueprints released, as more maps are added, as new modes are added. And 250 gigabytes for the multiplayer is a minimum. So, for all of these reasons, Cold War ultimately will not sell as well as Modern Warfare. And personally, I think the best thing for the series at this point going forward, after Cold War is released, is to release Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, either by layering it over Modern Warfare 1 Remastered, or allowing us to transfer our content from Modern Warfare Remastered 1 to the second one, and from there focus entirely on just having a complete, pure, solid Call of Duty that will last us for a bunch of years before they release some other one. I think for the series that's the best way to move forward, but that's just my personal opinion. With that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and thank you all very much for listening and or watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please go ahead and ignore me. Otherwise, regardless, have a great 24 hours.